analyzing it, even though you're mainly working for Senator Marsden.
Yep.
If you had to bet money right now, and please put on your objective hat, you're not an R, you're not a D, you're not an I. Objectively, if the election were held tomorrow, how many electoral votes do you think the president would get versus the Democratic opponent? Let's just say it's a generic candidate. We don't have a nominee yet. And for the listeners, you need 270 votes in the Electoral College to win, and 270. And if you go back to 2000, Al Gore got 269. He was one vote short. So what's your prediction, Matt? If you had somebody tell you had to make a prediction.
I would handicap it around, Democrat north of 310, 315, 36, or really can't pull off 315, 316.
Okay, why? Tell us why.
Because fundamentally the landscape is not good for the president. He may have made significant inroads in Ohio, where I believe 16 electoral college votes, but we should always remember that he squeaked out a very small victory in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan. And since then, things aren't looking much better for him there. When you look at these, generic ballot, or you're looking at Sanders or Biden or the other, or Warren, it's a 4-point race in those Midwestern battleground states. And when people say battleground states, they generally are only speaking about those 4 states. But this incredibly unpopular, many would say criminal president, has put other states into play that Republicans haven't had to worry about spending money in for decades. Texas, Arizona, Georgia, they're going to have to fight it out. Democrats and Republicans always fight it out in Florida, Pennsylvania, Ohio, possibly even Kansas, Maine. There are so many, and he has had to forget about some other used-to-be swing states that Democrats now don't have to spend money in: Nevada, Virginia, New Hampshire. Michigan isn't looking very good for the president. So he threaded the needle in 2016, but since then, I think we should all remember what's been happening to his party when the voters get to the polls.
Well, I would say that in 2016, he put a rope through a needle, but I just want to play devil's advocate for a little bit. There are a couple things that inure to his benefit that the Democrats have to always be aware of. Number one, you could say that he inherited a good economy, but the economy's doing pretty good. I mean, the unemployment rate's extremely low. I think it's the lowest in 40 or 50 years. He just had these 2 trade deals, one with China and one with Mexico. Stock markets just set a record. So the economy is doing well, and that's always a good barometer. Number 2, he's the incumbent. And we could say he put a rope through a needle, electoral college, yada, yada, yada. But I will say this, he is the incumbent, and it has a lot of benefits. The third thing is he's not going to have any primary challenge. I know this Governor Wells trying to give him a run in New Hampshire primary, and there's that other guy, I forget his name, Joe Walsh, former congressman from, I think, Illinois. They're in the primary in New Hampshire. But putting those aside, those benefits, if you will, one thing I always focused on, I want to say this to both of you, is I'm a big approval rating guru. And if you look at history, the approval rating of a president is always almost on the mark the amount of votes he's going to get. Barack Obama, he had an approval rating of a little less than 52% on the day of the election. He got 51.5% of the vote. George W. Bush, he had an approval rating of 51.5. He got 51.5. Gerald Ford in 1976, actually I voted for him, by by the way. Gerald Ford, his approval rating was 48.5. He got 48.5.
Tell him, Gene.
Pardon me?
I said tell him, Gene.
Yeah, but here's the other thing. This gets to the opposite argument, so I'm arguing against myself here. I encourage my listeners to religiously watch the Real Clear Politics approval rating average. I'm looking at it right now. And this is a very troubling sign for President Trump. Since January 11, there have been 7 national polls on his approval rating, and they've ranged 41 to 43. There were 7 polls, and 5 of them had him in the range of 41 to 43. Here's the punchline. No incumbent president will ever win re-election if their approval rating is in the range of 41 to 43. That ain't going to happen. Period. I don't care who the opponent is. Yep. And now that you add impeachment, the whole thing of integrity, ethics in government, that may outweigh, along with the fervency of the Democratic Party, will outweigh the benefits that I just described, incumbency, the good economy, and all that. And the last thing I think that is a big red flag and a gathering storm against the president is earlier today I had on a bunch of folks supporting the ERA. I had Danica Rome, and I can tell you this. Here's my prediction. The national vote, I predict 53 to 54% will be women nationally. And, of course, the Electoral College, of course, is states.
Yep.
And of that 53 to 54%, I predict Donald Trump is it's going to be 58 to 42. Yep. Or 62 to 38 among women.
Yep. Yeah,
and Matt, so you were on once, maybe twice, and we were talking about that at the state level. So I want to bring Chad back in. Do you have any comments? Do you have any comments about what I just said, or you want to add to anything?
I'm far more bearish on the Democrats' chances in the presidential election. I really see it as a toss-up. In the 3 areas that are going to decide this election pretty much are Wisconsin, Arizona, and Nebraska's 2nd district. I have Democrats having more electoral votes than they did in 2016, just like Republicans got more votes in 2012 compared to 2008. I think that's going to be possibly a trend we see in presidential elections. I have them winning Pennsylvania and Michigan. I think Michigan is going to be pretty much the 2012 Indiana. Barack Obama won Indiana in 2008 narrowly, but went on to lose it pretty easily in the following election. Look, the Democratic nominee is going to be Joe Biden or Bernie Sanders. I think we can all kind of agree on that. It's not going to be Elizabeth Warren or Pete Buttigieg or anyone below. So let's look at the 2 big weaknesses of each candidate. No one my age, or maybe like a third of people I know my age, want to vote for Joe Biden. All right, people my age in college. Joe Biden is not really going to be able to turn out the youth vote like Sanders can. Now, on the flip side of that, Sanders cannot turn out the African-American vote like Joe Biden can. Not only that, but looking at, the ideology differences, do we really expect, all these Democratic primary voters who have been diehard against their candidates, who are very much upset with the DNC with these polling requirements and their candidates not getting into debates and feeling their candidate has been rigged against? Do we really expect every single one of them to go vote in the general?
We don't need every single one.
No, but we need enough of them, because look, if we have
77,000,
if we have, look at Michigan in 2016. If the Green Party voters had voted for Democrat, and in a number of these states, these third-party voters, which even libertarians actually vote more Democrat than they do Republican if they had to choose. then Hillary Clinton would be president. Now, I'm not saying third-party, voting will be as high as it was in 2016. I think it's definitely going to be down. But
Chaz, let me ask you this. I threw this to Matt. I love this discussion, by the way. Chaz, if you had to bet money, and we basically have a generic candidate for the Dem right now, what do you think President Trump would get electoral college-wise? What would be his vote if the election were held tomorrow?
So if I'm eliminating toss-ups, I would say he's a favorite in all the three toss-ups. So it would be 268 for Democrats, 270 for the president.
Flip it a coin. Okay.
Right. So he would win by 270 votes. It would be like a repeat of 2000. I think it's going to be a very close election in the Electoral College. I think Democrats still win the popular vote. But, regardless, even though, yes, his approval rating has been consistently bad, it's not like people approved, of Donald Trump in 2016. More people liked Hillary Clinton, polls had shown in 2016 than they did Donald Trump, yet he went on to win. Now, obviously, there are many
not in the
factors
final week,
because
Chaz. Not in the final week. Not after the Comey letter.
Yeah.
I got to say, it's funny, Chaz and Matt, I was talking about this last night, I forget with whom, but my view is, I remember that it was Friday, October 28th, when the first Comey letter came out, and I was at an event, and I was at an event that was, filled with a mix of D's and R's, and this one Trumpster said, "It's all over." And I'm going, "Why?" And she goes, "This letter just came out from Comey." And I kind of blew it off, but that first Comey letter was devastating. Yep. I would even argue that the second letter was almost as bad as the first letter, because you had a Band-Aid on the wound, and then the second letter took the Band-Aid off.
Reopened the conversation.
Pardon me?
Reopened the conversation. So fingers on your hand days away from the election.
Yeah.
77,000 votes, guys.
But here's the thing about I want to talk to both of you about this. You know this. It was 70,000 votes. He won Michigan by 10, Wisconsin by 20, and Pennsylvania by roughly 40. And I can tell you this: in Michigan, I have so many anecdotes that help explain that. The union folks couldn't stand Hillary. They couldn't stand her.
Yep.
And it was visceral. And that's number one. The African American vote, it was like, she's going to win anyway. They sat home. Third thing is the Jill Stein. She got like 3 or 4% in a lot of states, but that was enough to allow Trump to put that rope through the needle, as I said earlier today. So, darn, it's going by fast. I want to end with a question for each of you, okay? And Chaz, you came on first, you get the first question. In the next few months, for the national election, what are the 2 or 3 issues that are going to drive people either for President Trump or for the Democratic nominee?
The economy, always, has been a big issue in every single presidential election. Healthcare remains a consistent issue. And I think gun reform could be another big issue. The third one can really just vary, but, healthcare and the economy are definitely, the biggest two, I would say.
Okay. Matt, you get the last word, man.
The biggest, it's clearly healthcare, especially if the nominee is Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren. That is what the debate will be, and it's not going to break well for the party that isn't doing well amongst women right now.
Any other issues that will percolate?
Of course, the economy is important. Maybe the president's haphazard, near bungling of us into war could be a very important discussion to have. North Korea, Russia, as they continue to hack and hack Burisma, that might be an issue. The president being impeached, that may be a topic.
Okay. Finish your thought there. Finish your thought.
I think the fundamental, when we look forward to 2020, everyone woke up that morning of that election assuming that Hillary Clinton was going to win. And this is a completely different frame of mind that everybody has. I think everybody knows that it's a possibility. It is a possibility that the president is reelected, and that is not a luxury that Hillary Clinton had that day.
Now, Chaz said that it's going to be either Joe Biden or Bernie Sanders for the Democratic nomination. What do you predict, Matt?
No, excuse me.
Oh, did you hear me?
No one has voted yet.
Okay.
Sorry, I drank.
Oh, hey, Matt, you worked out today. That's probably why.
Yes. No one has voted yet, so I think it's still a possibility that Elizabeth Warren gets the nomination. There's a path for Pete Buttigieg. And if they all stay in for a long time, if donors decide that they all should have a chance, it's a possibility that there is a brokered convention.
Yep.
You have a 5-way tie that just, this is a delegate count. This isn't a national poll that we're looking at here.
Sure.
It's not even a state-by-state poll. This is a delegate race. And if nobody gets to the requisite numbers, we could get a compromise candidate.
If we're getting a brokered convention, I would definitely say the president's the favorite to go on to win.
Yeah, I agree with Chaz on that. That's the last word. Chaz Nuttycombe and Matt Rogers, I can't wait to have you back. You guys are tremendous.